Hello, welcome to Anatomy Mondays, offering you space to connect with your own inner place. First, I want to start off Anatomy Mondays today with a bit of a check-in. So I am super nerdy, obviously, when it comes to this type of information, and I want to hear from you how you're receiving this information. What is working for you? What might not be working for you? Am I just talking into the void? And if I am, that's okay, because through wormholes, it will get to where it needs to go somehow. And I'm going to keep talking and saying what I got to say. And if you are a human life form and are listening to Anatomy Mondays and receiving benefit, please tell me. And if you're like, ooh, this could be a little better this way, or this is what's really present in my life, could you speak on this? Tell me. And also, if you have an area of your body that you want some insight on and maybe some reference points to support you, tell me that too, so that I can look at the muscles and structures in that area and do my best to get you what you are looking for. So please comment below what's working for you, what's not working for you, what you love, what your favorite part is, and anything else body related that you want to share with me relating to Anatomy Mondays. And the topic of Anatomy Mondays today is the rib cage. So I've been going over muscles galore, and I really want to focus on the rib cage today because in my own body it's been really present with me on how flexible and movable and expandable the rib cage actually is. I'm not sure about you, but in my schooling and learning, I always had in mind that the rib cage was a fixed structure in the body, and that the lungs and the heart kind of just moved and expanded like within them. That is very much not true. It's far from the case. The rib cage, I'm going to look at a beautiful picture here. The rib cage includes the heart, the lungs, part of the diaphragm, a bunch of nerves, some of your esophagus. That's about it. Right down here, depending on your rib cage, and that's another piece, all rib cages are created differently. Even each rib from the rib cage is created differently. So it's not just a one size fits all rib cage. They're individual and unique to the person, just like everything. So today I want to invoke a curiosity of how is your relationship with your rib cage, and how is your relationship with your lungs, with your rib cage, your lungs and your rib cage. Because as you breathe, your ribs, your costals, your cavity there, like a structured container, movable, flexible container, actually moves with your whole body when you breathe. When you inhale, when you inspire, and when you exhale. Expire. So I really want to meander around that path today. And I was really trying to find a visual to hone in on the living quality of bone, because bones aren't like the hard white pieces that we find in our chicken legs and in like anatomy labs where there are plastic bones. Our bones are actually breathing and pliable and squishy and red and alive in our bodies. And our rib cage is no different. So I was trying to find a video to show that quality, and I couldn't find anything that was fake, because I think that is like the thing that I want to provide here, is that it's alive and it's living inside your body, and it's flexible and movable and semi-permeable. So I have a video of a human skeleton that has been dissected pretty much down to its bone, and it's offers you a visual concept of the inspiration and expiration, like the pumping of the rib cage. And one note, the anatomist, the scientist that does this type of dissection work, his name is Gil Headley, and he is incredible at combining and integrating and honoring the relationship between human form and nature in a way that respects human form as nature. So everything that he does with his videos through dissection is respectful and honoring the form that was once living and is now not, that is on his table. So when you're watching this, if you do not want to watch a video, it's like a minute of real bone, you can skip through. And if you do, please watch it with respect and honoring that this was once a person, and now they have donated their form to learning more about what's inside.
Bodies, our human forms, we often think that we're supposed to be perfectly balanced from side to side. We're not perfectly balanced from 1 inch of a rib to the next 1 inch of a rib. Our bodies are fractal forms of nature, and nothing is exactly mathematically similar. But we were sort of playing with the motion of the ribs here, and we can actually like do a forced what we call it, forced inhalation. Forced exhalation, thank you. And then I let go, do a little rebound. And we can see there's still, even in a fixed form that's been lying on the table for 8 months, we still have elasticity in our lungs, in the pleura, in the muscle tissues. And all I'm doing is kind of giving it a little squeeze here, forced exhalation, and then the body inhales, right? And so there's something to be said about just the sheer mechanics, the design of the form, right? That wants to breathe. We're not doing anything here. I'm just compressing the rib cage and letting go. And on the rebound, air is pulling in to the thoracic space. Fascinating and beautiful. But anyway, I hope you'll admire with me these gorgeous forms, the muscle tissue that's in relationship with it, and the amazing gift that is our capacity to breathe.
It's seriously so cool that our bodies can do that. So I have some ideas for you. I took rib cage as a the way that I want to create vocab around the rib cage is that I'm relating it to boundaries. And this is a model that I have collected from an author named Cherie Sonnen-Mo. She wrote a book called The Ethics of Touch, and If you haven't read that book, you can get that book and delve more into this vocabulary. So this model is a way to conceptualize this information. It's not like a one-size-fits-all, not a distinct definition, just some ideas to play around with and see what works and what doesn't. So when I think of ribs, I think of like a cage of protection. So, and it's very vital and essential that we need protection here. Like, what do we have? We have our lungs, and then we have our heart on the left side here. Well, it kind of crosses over just a little bit to the right. And those are very essential organs that we need to function and live and thrive and survive. So, of course, we have some type of barrier and container to create protection and safety for those organs. And with that, there is a way to create that container without creating a distinct, rigid approach. So there are 3 versions of boundaries that Cherie speaks on. And there is rigid, which sometimes, not all the time, a rigid boundary in the rib cage can be very convexed, barreled, chested, like very rigid and stiff. Not a lot of movement and fluidity in the upper thoracic cavity. Perhaps limited or reduced breathing can also be a sign of rigidity as well. So some good questions to consider is what are you protecting yourself against? If you feel like very just stiff in your rib cage area, like maybe that your rib cage is like a whole unit that doesn't move, it just kind of stays in one place instead of worming and creating the flexibility between the relationship between the spine and the ribs, and then the ribs and the ribs. And then there is semi-permeable boundaries, which ideally we want to consider being in this spot of semi-permeable boundaries, where we're flexible, yet we have a safe container of like who I am and who you are, and there is grayness in between there. So semi-permeable allows for flow and movement, inspiration, and flexibility. And then permeable can sometimes look, and the way this is like my own thought process on this, if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, throw it out. Permeable can sometimes look, and this is based on my own experience as well, it can look like hunched over, because there isn't a supportive structure to keep you upright within yourself. And that can, based on what we learned last week, our mental patterns can affect biologically ourselves on a cellular level, and bone is just a culmination of cells that are listening to the mind up here. So permeable is letting and allowing others to affect you in drastic and dramatic ways, not necessarily having an idea of self or sense of self, and more so identifying with others' pains, feelings, and emotions. So ideally, we want to be in that flexible and fluid container of movement in our form, with a structure that allows us to be who we are, to express that effectively. So today I really want to focus on you noticing your relationship to your breath and how that moves through your lungs and through your rib cage. If you do expand, how much you expand. If you don't expand, what could be shifted there. If you're stiff, is noticing the quality of your bones that create the structure and container around your heart and lungs. So we're gonna, based on that video, it's incredible that Gil was just pressing down, so he was manually exhaling the air from the form, and then naturally the form expanded and increased in capacity. So we want to breathe. That's a natural way of life inside of us. And sometimes in my experience and working as a therapist for the past 6 years, a lot of times what's can be keeping someone from inhaling more is that there's already so much air that is still stuck inside of the lungs and the body that there isn't much room for more air, more breath. So we're going to focus today on the exhaling portion of breathing and really play around and experiment with what happens when you exhale completely. What happens after that? Like how the shape of your inhale just may or may not voluntarily flow after you exhale completely. So if you want to sit comfortably, our movement practice today is going to be breath movement and rib cage movement. So your rib cage, you have your clavicle up here. Then your rib cage starts like right below, sometimes right above your clavicle, like right in this general area here. And then it follows all the way down your thoracic cavity to about right here. And then it swoops around and creates like a curve, so natural curve to the body. And you got your diaphragm down here. You got your sternal notch. You got your sternum, mandibular notch. Is that right? Something along that line. No, this is your sternal notch. Upgrade my sternum language. All right. So we're gonna use our arms to press our cage together so that we are massaging the air out of the lungs. So we're compressing the lungs to expel the air out of our bodies. So we're really going to focus intentionally on exhaling, like as much as you can. Exhale all the way so that you are out of breath. And make some noise with it too if noise comes in. So like here's an example. So I'm really pushing with my arms against the rib cage. And then relaxing and letting myself naturally inhale. Really focusing on the exhale. And letting even more breath come through. And remembering as you continue to breathe and exhale, remembering those muscles that we've learned along the way, the intercostals, the muscles between your ribs, the serratus posterior inferior, who assists with forced exhalation, which is what we're doing. So we want to get all of the stale air out. Focusing on the relationship between the ribs and the lungs. Feeling your ribs compress your lungs. So you can breathe in fresh vitality. Fun fact, most of the air in the lungs is in the bottom 2/3, which is stuck air. And we are breathing the capacity of the upper 1/3 of the lungs. So imagine as we breathe and exhale all the stale, stagnant air and energy in our lungs, how much more space we are offered. We're allowing our ribs to serve us as massaging tools for our inner organs. So we breathe and notice the quality of the expansion that we are afforded after we release what no longer serves us. Really let your ribs move and get bigger as we breathe. And as you continue to exhale, your inhalations may get bigger. And you may get to a point where you feel like you can no longer inhale anymore. Maybe you try to see if you can stretch it a little bit more. And exhale completely. I think the most important piece that you consider here is the elasticity and flexibility and transitional movement that your rib cage affords for you. You can expand the capacity. And know that in the essence of bone itself, that you are afforded a container of structure. And a structure can be both protective, sustaining, and flexible, and fluid. Maybe you might put a hand on your sternum, your heart center, and one on your diaphragm to allow a softening. As you lean into your body's natural ability to breathe fully and exhale completely. I encourage you to move in life that affords flexibility and stability, protection and openness, and growth and vitality, inspiration. That concludes Anatomy Mondays for the day. I hope you got something out of it. Please leave me any feedback that is present for you regarding Anatomy Mondays. I'd love to curate it for you as best that I can. I'm Stephanie, your host, licensed massage therapist, and anatomy enthusiast. Take care and enjoy your week in your extravagant form. Bye for now.